everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Let's Chat Reality. I'm Molly,
I'm Michael.
and today we're really excited to be covering the Traitors finale and reunion, as well as Survivor 48's episode 2. I guess excited is maybe the wrong word for Traitors finale because that means season 3 of the Traitors is now over.
Yeah, always a sad time.
I know. Now we
I
get
love
UK
Traitors.
on Peacock, so we can watch
Yes, I highly recommend it. I watched it already and it's really, really good. So, anyone who, now that it's on Peacock, now has the ability to watch it more easily and has not already done so, highly recommend that. It's a really, really good season. And it's interesting if you haven't watched UK Traders to watch civilians play the game without knowing who they are beforehand. Because, like, some of the fun of Traders US is obviously like having all these people who you know from all these other shows, whether it's Housewives, CBS shows, but UK Traders, it's kind of like watching Survivor contestants or Big Brother contestants like playing for the first time on those shows, but playing Traders for the first time. And it's totally different type of experience, but it's really, really fun.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to watch that to get my traders fix in. But let's get back to the US season. So for this finale, we started out at the round table since the last episode we didn't see who Brittany had voted for. And it reveals that Brittany does vote for Danielle here. And so then Danielle was banished. And there, of course, Danielle was upset. She feels that Brittany betrayed her yet again like she did on Big Brother Reindeer Games. So that was a surprising moment. I was like, oh my gosh, that was crazy. What were your thoughts, Michael?
I have to say, I was surprised. I really, really thought that this was a fake out. I thought that Brittany's reaction was more so to the fact that Danielle actually has a chance to stay now, that it's going to be, I don't know whether it's a coin flip or. I also don't know in the event of a tie whether it just would have been Danielle and Ivar who were up for elimination or whether it would have been like Survivor drawing rocks where now those two are actually safe and everyone else is up for banishment. I don't know how they would have done it, but I we never got that far, so I guess we'll have to find out in the future if that ever happens again. But yeah, I was surprised. I really really didn't think that that was going to happen, but I mean, I keep going back and forth of whether I think it was a good move for Brittany to do that because, on one hand, at first it doesn't seem like it, obviously, because Danielle is somebody who would have been on her side. Traders want the numbers going into the fire of truth, and to have both of them there would have been obviously a huge, huge help for Brittany. But on the other hand, in terms of just kind of having a fighting chance of like if Danielle was going to potentially be banished regardless. Like whether it ended up just would have come down to a coin flip between Danielle and Ivar. Brittany continued voting for Danielle, but then Danielle still goes home. I think that makes her look a little bit more suspicious that she was writing that hard for Danielle, whereas her being willing to change her vote and potentially being able to kind of salvage that a little bit with the relationship with others, that she went along with them with that. I don't know. I mean, it didn't work out, obviously, spoiler alert, but like, did it give her more of a fighting chance? Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think she also was thinking as like with the eyes from Dolores that Dolores was changing her
Right.
vote there for Danielle as well. So I think at that point she was just like, well, I can't save Danielle here. I might as well vote with everyone else. So that definitely had a factor in it. But also, yeah, I mean, she didn't end up winning regardless. So I don't know how it would have changed if it had been that Danielle was still in the game with Brittany there. So I don't know. I still feel like they wouldn't have won both of them. So I'm not sure it really did that much difference there. But it was a shocking moment to start off the episode that way because I feel like the rest of the episode it was kind of expected what was gonna go down.
Yeah.
But then Brittany gets the seer power, so then she chooses to learn Gabby's true identity, and they
Learn.
go
In
yeah,
quotes.
exactly.
Shocking.
Yeah, they go into this like dinner room, and it was like Gabby was funny. She was like, "Wow, I'm comfortable with this. It's like The Bachelor."
Yeah. Yeah,
uh,
she's like, "But this is actually better for me now that that I'm with someone like Brittany rather than someone like Clayton."
yeah, exactly. Were you surprised by that choice? Brittany chose Gabby here.
No, I don't know that she could have had much of a better pick. Like I think Gabby was a good enough pick at this point. I think that she seemed like that was at the round table the one that she was going hardest against, even though she didn't end up voting for her. She was definitely kind of well, I guess, yeah, okay, no, later on it was the Dylan thing. Sorry, I'm skipping ahead. But yeah, at that round table, it was Gabby versus Brittany, really, mostly. And so that Brittany started off that round table, I believe, and kind of accusing Gabby. And so I definitely think that that made the most sense, just that that would be whose identity she would be most curious about, because at the previous round table, she had kind of been expressed that that sentiment that she thought Gabby might be a traitor. So that made sense to me.
Yeah, for sure. And I think then, like, she could then confirm it if she wanted to, which we obviously see that she does, like, and goes back to the house to confirm that Gabby is a faithful. So I feel like that was a good move for Brittany in that way, too, because then it shows that Gabby was like, well, maybe Brittany is a faithful if she's not lying to me about what I am, is like, she actually is a faithful there. So I think then it turned out to be a good move in that way. Like whoever she chose, like she had to be honest with who it was, I think. But I think with Gabby in particular, it made sense because she already had those suspicions for Gabby. So it would have been easy for her to continue on into those suspicions, into saying that Gabby was a traitor, but instead she said that she was a faithful. So I think that also was good for Brittany here.
For sure. That was the only thing she could have done, I think. And I was scared that she wasn't going to do it because I last well, okay, I'm not going to spoil UK season 3, I guess, because now that it's on Peacock, people can actually watch it easily. So I'm not going to spoil what happened there. But no, I think that this was definitely the smart move because if she had said that Gabby was a traitor, then basically now all eyes are going to be on both of them because it's like, well, the smart thing to do then is to just, if they're accusing each other of being traitors, one of them is telling the truth, and so just banish both of them, and then you get out your traitor.
Yeah.
So I think that this way, at the very least, there is some doubt, I think, for people to be like, okay, maybe she is telling the truth here. Maybe Brittany is a faithful and she's trying to help us out. That, okay, it's neither of us two. You got to look at the other two. So I think that that was absolutely the best move. Again, obviously, it didn't work out for her, but it gave her a fighting chance.
Yeah. For sure. And then we have the final mission. So the players have to locate $25,000 worth of gold hidden at a neighboring estate. And if they are successful, then they're given the chance to double their money. And they have to fly over the castle while dangling underneath a helicopter and drop 2 bags of money in the ring of fire. And then if the bag falls in the ring, then its value is doubled. So, in this, did you like that mission or watching them all hanging from the helicopters?
It was fine. Look, like I don't know even why we have a final mission. Like I just feel like it's almost pointless. There's no shields that are potentially up for grabs, so it's just kind of like a celebratory final thing here, but it was one of those things where I was like, well, let's get on with it here.
Yeah, agreed. I feel like they kind of showed it for too long. I feel like it could have been
Yeah.
done a little faster here, but I was kind of like, wow, I kind of want to do this, like hanging from the helicopter, trying to aim into the rings of fire.
You have fun with that. I will be watching you horrified.
I know, I
But
know you would hate it because of the heights.
right, exactly. But no, I think like what I maybe would prefer here that I think would be fun is kind of like what Big Brother does for their final veto competition, where it's like kind of trivia about the season that we just watch, or something maybe where it's like answer questions based on who you think is the traitor, like answering questions about the traitors or something like that. I don't know. I think that like something where it's like, how much did you pay attention this whole season? Maybe would be a little bit more fun to watch for a final mission here because there's not really any stakes involved for us as viewers because we don't care how much money they win or don't win. But I think that yeah, if they're gonna do something, I think that maybe that they need to change this up a little bit because it was a little bit lagging.
Yeah, for sure. And they only added 37,500 to the prize pot, which I feel like was kind of low overall. Like, okay, like you put in this much effort to get these helicopters that probably cost more than
Yeah.
$37,500. But and then it brings their total to 204,300 for the total of the end of the prize pot, which I feel like is really not a ton
Oh my god,
for
it's
the
lower than like any other show that I can think of that's not like a one episode game show or something. It's like, I mean, come on, Peacock. Like, you spend all this money to get these people there, which maybe is why they don't have a lot of money left to spend for the final prize pot. But I mean, their appearance fee is worth more than the four of them won when they split this amount of money. So, I mean, I think we'll get to it later, but I have more thoughts on that.
Yeah, for sure. But then we do get to the final roundtable, and there we won't find out like whoever gets voted out here won't be revealed if they're a traitor or a faithful. But they obviously are still going at each other. With starts with Ivar and Dolores saying that they've been suspicious of each other, but then they defend themselves, and then Dylan and Brittany start arguing with each other, and they're accusing each other of being traitors. And here I felt like Brittany's argument for Dylan was pretty strong, even though obviously we know that Dylan is a faithful, but Brittany was doing all that she could here to save herself.
Hmm.
But in the end, then Brittany does receive all four votes and is banished. So all the faithfuls were just onto her and were right. At this moment, they didn't know, but they were right that she was a traitor. So do you think that this was the right move for Brittany to go after Dylan here?
I think that she went a little bit was a little bit too defensive. Like I think that there probably was a better way for her to go about it where she could have just kind of I don't know. I think she did fine. Like I don't think that she did terribly. I don't think it was like she made it too obvious that she was a traitor, but I just think that there was something that like she could have done to more and I don't want to say more calmly because like I don't like what Dylan said where he was like accusing her of like berating him and like I don't know like he was kind of using some words that felt a little bit I don't know, like, and I don't think sexist is the right word, but like, I don't know. He's allowed to defend himself, but she's not allowed to defend herself, type of thing. That rubbed me a little bit of the wrong way. And I love Dylan, but that moment I didn't love for him. But I just think that an actual faithful in that moment would have probably been a little bit more calm in defending themselves than Brittany was.
Mhm.
So that would have probably perked my ears up just a little bit about her.
Yeah, and then obviously everyone clocked her in that moment that they were like, okay, well, she's obviously the traitor here if this is
Yeah.
how she's acting, so she didn't do herself any favors in that regard. But I was happy that because I did want the faithfuls to win at the end. At this point, we knew that at least one faithful was going to have to win because there were no traitors left.
Yeah.
So the traitors were all banished, and that was actually kind of crazy. I feel like for that to happen at this point in
Mhm.
the game.
Yeah, I mean, I was not shocked. Once Danielle left, I really did think it was going to be a very uphill battle for Brittany,
Mhm.
especially because of the way when Danielle left that she was praising everybody, complimenting everyone except for Brittany. And that to me was the biggest tell that Brittany was a traitor because she felt so betrayed by her. And look, like they have their history. I think no matter what, even if Brittany was still faithful, Danielle probably would have felt betrayed, but I don't think she would have felt that betrayed because at least she could have, I think, justified it in her head of like, it is Brittany's job to get out the traitors. And like, yes, I've been her angel traitor, they call it, for all this time, keeping her in the game, preventing her from being murdered. But at a certain point, there's no more murders left. So everything that Danielle was helping Brittany with is now, is now a moot point. And so if Brittany had still been a faithful at that point, it would have been the best move for her to get out Danielle, because at the final fire of truth, only one of them can win. They cannot win together. So I think she would have respected that, but because there was so much emotion on both sides, really, I think that read as suspicious to everyone.
Yeah, for sure. And then at the end, we do get those four faithfuls there to go to the fire of truth. And I was not surprised by this that they all decided to just end the games there, end the game there, because it felt like they all felt like they trusted each other and they were all faithfuls there. And obviously, that turned out to be true. And they all get to split the prize together. So, were you surprised by this? Do you think they should have banished someone?
I think that I was not surprised that they all decided to end the game here. I think that, and this is kind of what I was hinting at before, was that I think that if the prize pot was bigger, like I think if they were playing for $1 million instead of 200,000, and the difference between splitting it between the four of them, like a quarter of a million, and then you split it between three people, and now suddenly you're getting, uh, $75,000 more. That's a pretty big difference than it is between splitting 200,000, where okay, I'm getting 50,000, or if I'm splitting it between three, I can't do math, but I'm getting maybe like 70,000, a little less than 70,000 each. Like, that's not a huge difference. So it's like, am I going to betray somebody who I'm fairly confident is a faithful, and somebody who I could, have a good friendship outside of the house? We can, have this happy moment between all four of us. We've gone through all this. Am I going to ruin that moment and potentially lose a friend over like $15,000 maybe? Like, no, it's really not worth it. It's especially to these people who are celebrities. They are, reality stars. They have all these opportunities outside of this. They already have a following on social media. Like, they can do a paid post for more than that. Like, it's just not worth it to them. So you might as well end it now.
Yeah, I agree. I think because of the prize pot just not being a lot, it really wasn't that much of an incentive to get out anyone else and to ruin those friendships there. So it makes sense. And obviously, most of them also were working together for a while throughout the season. So it felt like they're happy for them to like all end it together.
Yeah.
And I was especially happy to see Dylan and Gabby winning. And obviously Dolores and Ivar were happy there as well since they were faithfuls the whole way.
Glad
Even
somebody
if
was happy for Ivar, because Ivar might be the only one.
yeah, I mean I feel like he did have good points throughout the season, so I don't know.
Did he?
Maybe.
Did he though?
But essentially
um
Gabby and Dylan, they were the ones always
Yeah,
on screen.
Gabby and Dylan deserve this. Look, I cannot take that away from them. I think absolutely Gabby and Dylan deserve this. Was I really sad not to see the storybook ending of Danielle and Brittany winning after, everything that they went through? Yeah, I was sad about that. And it was really heartbreaking to watch this end the same way that Reindeer's game ended for them. And all this, coming together just for another betrayal, what felt like a betrayal, was really sad. It reminded me a lot. I know you're not going to get this reference, but some of our listeners might. But it reminded me a lot of the John and Bananas and Sarah situation from the Challenge Rivals 3, where they were had a rivalry from 2 seasons earlier that started where Sarah betrayed him. Then they get paired up together as rivals on Rivals 3. They have the whole season together as partners where they mend their friendship. They have this great friendship. And then at the very, very end, Bananas has an opportunity to steal the money from Sarah and steals it from her. And everything that they just experienced that whole season of mending their friendship was just poof, gone. And this felt a little bit analogous of that, where they come in having a strained relationship, mend it the whole season. They're paired up together as traitors. They have this great moment together. and then at the end, Brittany votes for her. But this to me felt more unintentionally a betrayal. Like I think she really felt like her vote wasn't going to matter, and this was her way of trying to set herself up, continuing to set herself up to have a chance to not be the next one just voted out. And so this to me felt like much less of an intentional betrayal than what Bananas did, but it did kind of have little hints of it that reminded me of that.
Yeah, definitely. And I know some people were upset that the faithfuls here were just not trying to get out anyone else too, which was like, well, none of these were gamers. So they really were just like, well, also related to like the money pot of it probably didn't
Right.
really help, but like also because they didn't really see it at that point as much of the game versus like they were just wanting to all get along with each other and not have any bad blood afterwards,
Yeah.
which could happen. Like obviously with Danielle and Brittany, like they understand that's part of the game, even though it has strained their relationships too. But it's like it is part of the game. But with people left at the final four, at the with the final four faithfuls we had, like I think like they just didn't want to risk any of that as well.
Yeah, I think like these are all the type of people who think that what Trishelle and CT did last season, where they took out MJ at the very end, knowing that obviously, or I guess no, they were all faithfuls too, but they were pretty confident that MJ was a faithful. Like I don't think they really thought that MJ was a traitor, but they still decided to get her out at the very end, so that the two of them could just split it together and split more of it. So I think that these four are the type of faithfuls who probably all think that what Trishelle and CT did was really messed up, and they were not going about to do that to somebody else. So I think that this these four particular faithfuls to me, I could not have seen any of them continuing on just to vote someone out for the sake of it.
Yeah, for sure. But then we also get the Traitors reunion that was released the same night as the finale, and we have very interesting outfits from everyone. I feel like they all were dressing like they were on the red carpet here. So who did you think
Or
was
a
the
Housewives reunion, yeah.
or a Housewives reunion? Yeah, I know. That's I mean, we had Andy Cohen, so makes
Right.
sense.
Right, exactly. No, I think that all the women I thought were looked great. Probably the most disappointing was maybe like Dorinda. I don't know, that was just kind of boring.
Yeah.
But I thought, I mean, Danielle looked amazing, Brittany looked amazing, Ion's dress was spectacular. I thought I really thought they all looked good. Were there any that stood out to you?
I thought Bob the Drag Queen
Oh,
was
of course.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, his outfit was incredible. And I think yeah, just everyone just looked great in in the reunion. I feel like they all obviously had their hair and makeup done. Like everything was
Yeah.
just to a T.
And let me
So
just say, this is why I miss the live reunions for Survivor. We get to
mhm,
see things like this, especially on that show. Like, yes, on Traitors, we get to see them dress up every single week. So, like, it's not, they, don't look as, like, starkly different than the reunion than they do on the show. But this is why everyone needs to vote for the live. Well, I guess the voting's over by now. But everyone, I hope, voted for the live finale on Survivor 50.
oh yeah. I mean, how could you not? Like that is just the best part is when they get to come out and see them when they are like right now and versus on the island. Like they look so different because they're also
Yeah.
losing weight and like all not eating. Like
Right, exactly. No, but like it's so exciting even on Traitors finale to see what everyone's wearing. Like think
yeah,
about how much more amazing that will be for Survivor 50.
I know we need that, which I think we will. I think we'll get it.
I hope so.
But going back to the reunion for traders, we start out with just the winners out with Andy. So Andy just goes through talking with all of them and announces that Dolores voted incorrectly 8 out of 10 times. So she still won, but did not vote right 80% of the time.
That's
Uh,
wild. I mean, like that's just crazy. It's how did a someone win who was that off? Like that to me is just indicative that maybe there's something slightly broken about the format of the traders. But look, it's so entertaining. I can't say that we should make too many changes to it. But if you're really like, I don't think that's the point of the traders. Like, I think the traders is not. You don't watch it for the same reason that you watch Survivor for like the layers and layers of complex strategy. You're watching it for entertainment value to see all these characters. It's like the Avengers of the reality TV universe. So I think you have to watch Traders with a little bit of a different mindset than you watch other competition shows because you can get a winner like Dolores who voted wrong 80% of the time.
Yeah, and I think also that was a benefit to her since the traders then were like, "Well, Dolores never gets it right, like, we don't need to worry about her." So,
Exactly, and
it
that's
wouldn't
what,
work.
like, yeah, I think that's what, like, people should say is, like, okay, like, is it wrong for the show that, like, that's incentivized for the traders to keep those people in? But, like, I don't know. I feel like you can say that there's certain tweaks that should be made to make it an actual better, less broken game that sure I'd be in support of changing, but if it ain't broke, don't fix it, and it's the most popular competition show on in the world right now, so I think that they're probably not too incentivized to make too many changes.
Yeah, for sure. And then Andy also asked them about why they didn't banish anyone there at the end. And as we were saying before, is that they just all trusted each other and that they were confident also that Brittany was the last traitor left. So they felt that they wanted to end it, the four of them, and didn't see the need to vote anyone at that point.
Yeah. And look, again, with the lack of incentive prize money wise to do that, I can't say that I blame them. Not the most exciting ending. I mean, as Gabby said, it's a little kumbaya, but look, I can't say that I blamed them when they were put in the position they were put in.
Yeah, and they didn't say anything about the money of it here, obviously, because they don't think they want to get in trouble with producers or
I was
people.
gonna say,
They're getting
yeah.
paid regardless of, like, being there in the show, so
Right.
then maybe that has a factor in it too, of, like,
Yeah.
they didn't totally care how much was in the prize pot because they're already making money from being there, but, I mean, it's how it ended, we gotta accept it, it's the end of the season,
Right.
so
And that's again, and when you watch UK traders, you will see a little bit of a different mindset there because these people are not going in as notable figures, so they don't have a following on social media. They aren't necessarily going to get all these other opportunities to do other shows and win higher prize values potentially. So this is their one shot. Like $250, $250,000 for them is a huge opportunity. So they are a little more cutthroat. They're a little bit, they get more emotional when accused at the round table. Like it just, everything's a little bit bigger and a little bit more cutthroat because these people need this money and they're not getting paid as much of a appearance fee as the US Traders cast is. So this is their one chance and they're going to do what they can to get as much money as possible.
yeah. For sure. But then the traders come out, so they have it like separate at first from just the winners, and then the traders come in and they're all together. And well, traders and then the four remaining or four last winners. And with the
Yeah,
traders,
everyone who's already on the stage
yeah,
stays on the stage.
they
So
set the
like
stage.
when the traders comes on, the winners are still there and so on and so forth.
Yeah, sorry, I was trying to explain that in a more
You
simple
know,
way. So that's how it's
it's
explained.
complicated. Like
Yeah.
they did it different. They didn't do that in the past. Like actually,
No.
weirdly, they did the opposite. I remember in season. I don't remember exactly what they did season two, but I know season one. I believe they brought out everybody except the traders, or except Suri, I guess, because she won, or maybe the finalists weren't there totally. I don't remember exactly, but like they kind of did the opposite this time, where the people that like were the bigger names, like the winners and the traders, like they were there more of the time and then everyone else was there less of the time, which makes a lot more sense to me.
Yeah, I liked it that way.
Yeah.
So when the traders come on stage, then Andy talks to each of them and understanding more of what we want to hear, which is starts out with talking to Carolyn and Danielle, discussing their relationship, and Danielle called it organized chaos. And then Carolyn gets emotional when she was asked if she feels that Danielle respected her, which then she says no, and that was sad to see that Carolyn still felt that way. But then Danielle says that they had a communication issue, but that she knows that she's smart and does respect her. So seems like they kind of had cleared things up there in a way, but obviously Carolyn was feeling overall that she wasn't feeling respected.
Yeah, I mean, this was sad. I just think that the two of them had a really huge lack of communication. And I can see it on both sides where I completely understand how Carolyn would feel like Danielle doesn't respect her, doesn't respect her game. Probably like Carolyn thinks that Danielle thinks she's dumb and can't make a decision, can't think strategically. And I can see how for Danielle, Carolyn's lack of decisiveness was probably very frustrating. And the fact that they just could never come to an agreement easily. And everything that Danielle recommended, Carolyn would push back on. Everything that Carolyn recommended was someone who Danielle like was untouchable to Danielle. So it was just like two battering rams, like not come to any sort of decision. And I think that I can absolutely understand on how on both sides they're probably like, get me out of here, get me somebody else. I can't do this anymore. But I think that led to them both feeling really hurt and all these feelings about each other. Whereas I think if they just kind of actually talked and listened to each other outside of the game, and maybe they have, like it seems like maybe they have, and they're with outside of the game fine with each other. But I just hope that they, if they haven't already, they can have a good conversation, healing conversation between the two of them because I think they'd be fine outside of it.
Yeah, for sure. And then we also hear Bob the drag queen says he doesn't even remember telling everyone to go after the Cage Boys. And so Boston Rob then admits that it wasn't actually as impactful watching it back as he had thought. But he admits that he did start the trend of traders going after each other. So Rob was just being himself and making it so that he could get as far as he could, even though maybe did not help him in the end there as well. But what were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I was glad, that Rob was able to admit that
Yeah.
he probably didn't need to go after Bob when he did, that he could have waited a little bit longer because that was how I always felt about it was that look, it's not necessarily the worst decision in the world to go after Bob at some point, but I don't think it needed to be as early as it was and right after that specific roundtable when Bob made that comment. I just don't think anyone thought as much of it as Rob did. And so like it needed to happen at some point, yes, but it didn't need to be right then. And I think many legendary players who are known as like every move that they make is perfect. I don't think that a lot of those types of players with the reputation that Boston Rob has would be big enough to admit when they're wrong it's strategically in a moment like that. And so what I really love and respect about Boston Rob is that he is willing to say that. And I think it makes me at least think a lot more highly of him that he's willing to do that.
Yeah, agreed. I feel like everyone just loved Rob this season, so I think he just wanted to continue on that high of being like, "Yeah, I'm apologizing here. I knew this was not maybe the best move here."
Yeah.
And then also, this was funny that Andy asked about if Rob would actually split the money with Carolyn if he went to the end with her, and then he said no. And then Carolyn admitted that she wouldn't have either. So here's another point of like the gamers like from Survivor, where obviously like you're trying to win as much money as you can. Like they both were just not gonna trust each other in the end there, and that was funny to hear them both admit that.
Yeah, I mean, I think they probably both knew deep down that that was probably the case, but Carolyn was like, "No, I don't want to hear it. Don't say it out loud." Like, don't. But I think that they're both gamers. I think any of the gamers have to know in the back of their mind that there's a good chance that if they go to the end with another gamer traitor, like they they're not going to expect to be willing to win uh together, that at some point they're going to have to take each other out.
Yeah, for sure. And then Danielle talks about swearing on her grandkids, and she did admit that she did. And then she says that Dolores swore on her family first, and then she swore on her grandkids in return because she knew that family was important to Dolores. So she felt like that gained her trust with Dolores, which obviously Dolores did say she trusted Danielle from that. But Danielle says that she did it because she wanted the money to help her family, so she did what she did. what she needed to win, to hopefully win the game. So I mean, going back to it, like it is a game. Like I think people take this very seriously, which like there are two sides of it, obviously. Like if you want to take it seriously, if you don't. And like Danielle was taking it very seriously, so and she was a traitor, and so she had to do what she had to do, which obviously sometimes could be rubbing people the wrong way.
Yeah, I can completely understand how somebody watching that or playing with Danielle would say, look, that's not something that I would do, that I don't feel comfortable swearing on my family when, especially when I'm not telling the truth. I can completely understand that, but I think that everybody's line is different with that. And I don't think that you can say that somebody is a horrible person for in a situation like this when you're in a game choosing to do something like that. Like, yeah, if I was the on the receiving end of it and found out that Danielle had been lying to me this whole time when she was saying things like that, and that was kind of what got me to feel like I could trust her more, I would probably feel some type of way about it being on the actual receiving end of it. But like eventually I think I could get over it very easily and be like, okay, good game. You know what? You did what you had to do. Without you doing that, maybe I wouldn't have trusted you as much. So, look, it may not have actually worked out for Danielle in the end to win the game, but she probably made it further than she would have if she hadn't done that and that she hadn't gotten somebody like Dolores to avoid ever voting for her because she trusted her so much. And knowing that she had that number on her side was super helpful to her. And without that, she may have been out a lot earlier. So, you know what I think is like Whoopi Goldberg always says about gay marriage is that if you aren't in support of gay marriage, don't marry a gay person. If you don't feel like you are wanting to, that is crossing a line for you to swear on your family, then don't swear on your family. That's the way that I think about it.
Yeah, for sure. And then Brittany comes out to join the rest of the traders and the winners. And Dolores denies that she made eye contact with Brittany to give her that signal to vote for Danielle, which was interesting to hear that. Which obviously, like, there is editing involved and all that, but it did make it seem like that was the case. Um, but then also Danielle says that she and Brittany were close before reindeer games. But then Brittany claims that they only really spent 3 hours together before then. So she was like, "How close were we if we only saw each other for 3 hours?"
Yeah. And
So
I can speak on that
yeah,
because they never played Big Brother together, a full season of Big Brother together. They had only what they had done before Big Brother Reindeer Games, and this is, I assume, the 3 hours that Brittany is referring to, is that in Big Brother 25, if you remember, there was the time laser segment at the very beginning of the season and at the very end of the season. It bookended that season that started the whole multiverse theme that that season had. So it was Brittany, Danielle, and Frankie Grande. So I believe that is the first time that Brittany and Danielle had ever met, was doing that segment. So I'm sure that they talked in between, when they were filming that, but it was a little segment. Each one couldn't have taken more than an hour, hour and a half. So I'm sure that's what she's referring to, is that, it was kind of an hour and a half here, an hour and a half there. So what I believe the timing was that when they did the first one, they did not know that they were going to do reindeer games. That wasn't something that had been talked about yet at the start of Big Brother 25. But by the finale of it, because the whole point of it was that they were changing it and then it became Christmas themed, and then that was the announcement of BB Reindeer Games. So when they did the second one, they did know that they were playing that. So I'm sure that at that time they probably talked a little bit more because they're like, hey, all three of us are going on this show. Like, let's get to know each other a little better. Let's form a little pregame alliance. So I'm sure that that one they talked probably more on a deeper levels, like, knowing that they were going about to be on another show together. But yeah, like it's not like it's not like Dan and Janelle last season had, actually played 15 years before that, not that long, like 11, 12 years before that, and had a long history and had spent, months in a house together. but they just didn't have that type of history, and they played reindeer games that like took a week to film, and they didn't even sleep in the house together. So they really didn't have that long of a history. So like for Danielle to make it seem like that, in whether it's in interviews or on the show or anything, like I think is a little bit misleading.
Yeah, I agree, and I think, like, because of people not really knowing as much about the history, they're, like, clinging on to that fact of,
Right.
like, thinking, like, "Oh, they were best friends," even though that's very much a stretch to what they were.
Yeah.
So it is interesting to hear them say that.
Yeah. I mean, like the truth of it is like, yes, they were it had a good relationship for the time during reindeer games before Brittany betrayed her. Like they were kind of in an alliance, but it wasn't even just like the two of them. Like they were with other people, and Brittany just didn't trust Danielle. And because of what Xavier said to Brittany before that was that hamster wheel challenge where Brittany chose, everyone had to go on that challenge, and if they succeeded in the time that they had to do it, then they could choose the next person to go who would get a little bit less time to complete it. And Brittany did it thinking she was going to go home, ended up surviving, and had to choose someone. She had like three people to choose from. And she asked Xavier why he didn't choose Danielle, why he chose Brittany. And he was like, well, I did that to save Danielle. So in her mind, oh, Xavier and Danielle are a final two. They're very close. I need to break that up. And so then she chose Danielle to go, not thinking that she could trust her to be a close ally. Turns out in the end that Danielle was thinking Brittany was a close ally, wasn't betraying her or anything. So in that sense, yeah, like Brittany was kind of the one technically in the wrong. But
Yeah.
here it's a little bit of a different story. So, it's a whole thing. But like they were kind of aligned for 3 days in a game, but like it wasn't like they were together for weeks and weeks and had a super close relationship. That's just not true.
Yes, for sure. And then also, Danielle and Brittany deny the rumor that Danielle told Brittany that she was a traitor off camera. So it was just taken out of context, is what Brittany claimed. She said that because she had mentioned that she trusted Danielle 100%, like that was like then her knowing that, or not trusting, like, thinking that she knew 100%, that was meaning that Danielle was a traitor, that she knew
Right.
that, like, from fact, but it wasn't. It was just taken out of context there.
Right. It was Brittany saying, like, I think what she said was like, the first conversation I had with Danielle, I knew she was a traitor. Was
Yeah,
basically like, I believe the give or take the way that she said it. And I think that people took that to mean Danielle told Brittany that she was a traitor in that conversation. But no, it was just Brittany saying, like, yeah, I knew. Like, I can read Danielle. Like, it was not anything
it was her
concrete.
feeling,
It
not
wasn't
her.
an admission exactly, and that's what people mistook, because I think it was just people really hate Danielle who are watching for whatever reason. A lot of, I would say, casual viewers, like people who didn't come into it knowing who Danielle was, really, really don't like her on this season, and so they were looking for any little thing to use against Danielle, and that was just one of the things that they used.
Yep, for sure. But then we get more of the Faithless to come out. So, at first, it was funny hearing how Tom Sandoval talks about redeeming himself in the public image, and I was like, okay, like I guess some people do consider him like the quotes that they were sharing. I was like, okay, how many people are actually saying this about him? But I think overall, like he did seems to be better received than he's been in other shows, obviously, because maybe not everyone has watched his seasons of Vanderpump Rules to understand the whole situation there. But I think it was entertaining to see him regardless. Maybe I still don't like him, but like he was still entertaining.
I mean, people have the memory of a goldfish. Like they just like people who were so gung ho against Tom Sandoval when it was cool to do that, and then now it's like it's been 2 years. It's been just almost exactly over 2 years. Last week was 2 years. So people just don't they just don't remember, or they don't care anymore or whatever. And yeah, now it's suddenly cool to think like that Tom Sandoval is so entertaining. Like, yeah, he's good TV. I will absolutely give him that. It is good TV to watch him make a complete ass of himself. I love watching that. But I am never going to say that this made me like Tom more, that now I don't care that he what he did. Like, that's not what I'm ever gonna say. But yeah, I love watching Brittany make fun of him in her diary rooms.
Oh yeah, same. That was great. And then Chriselle also apologizes to Nikki for being the driving force behind her banishment. That she said that was her biggest regret, and felt that after that she couldn't really speak up as much because she didn't want to be wrong again. So I
Yeah.
felt for Chriselle there. She definitely was regretful for that.
Yeah, she knew she messed up at the moment that Nikki said she was a faithful. So yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where I think if Chriselle did another season or two of competition shows like this, she would never make that mistake again. But it was just, a rookie mistake. And she's a fan of these types of shows. She loves Big Brother. She's watched it for many, many years. So I'm a little surprised that she made a move like that, but sometimes you have to just kind of learn from doing it, and just being a fan and watching doesn't necessarily always translate to being an amazing player your first time.
Yeah. For sure. And then we see the rest of the faithfuls come out, and also Bob the drag queen come out on stage. And
Jabab was already there, but
oh, Bob was
yeah,
already there. Sorry,
yeah,
Bob was already there. The rest of the faithfuls. I'm sorry.
yeah. So now
I
the
was
whole
just
cast is out
yeah.
there.
Now
Yeah,
the whole cast is out there. I was like, because Bob was not a traitor for that long. I kind of forgot that he was still
yeah.
on stage first. But so now Dorinda and Bob are going at it about how she was mad that she was banished first. And overall, then Ayan was also saying that she thinks that Bob murdered her because he was jealous of her. So, what were your thoughts on that?
I think Dorinda was a little bit looking for her moment here at the reunion. That I think she
Mhm.
felt like she was so shortchanged, which was such a crime that she was out so early. Like, I mean, she would have been amazing if she had lasted longer on this show. So I think she wanted her little moment here to have her reunion fight that she is well known for, and that Dorinda's a fighter. Dorinda will not let you talk. When she's mad, she will just keep going and nonstop. So I think this was her chance to do that. And but she was hurt. I think that she doesn't like when somebody like Bob says, like, I had no idea who you were. Like, I think that really did bother her. I think that
Mhm.
Bob kind of kept saying that he just didn't know Dorinda, and kind of said it in a little bit of a shady way. But then Ayan pipes in and and said that Bob was jealous of her. Like, this kind of just became like, okay, the housewives who didn't have much of another thing to talk about at the reunion. I think that this was their chance to get in there.
Yeah, agreed. And then we also see that all of them get different awards for being different. I forget exactly what all of the titles were, but at the
It
end,
was. I think they were all
superlative.
just nominees for best performance in a Scottish castle.
Oh, they were all nominees. Okay, I thought
Yeah,
thought they were maybe giving us them other names, but maybe I just was hearing it wrong. But yeah, so all the
maybe
nominations.
you're right. That's what the only one I remember seeing.
Yeah. But at the end, we see who the best performance in the Scottish Castle was named the winner for, which was Danielle, and she wins. And she had a little acceptance speech there, so I think that was nice to give that to Danielle. Obviously, she did have a great performance throughout this season. Obviously, maybe some people thought that it was kind of annoying, which she even said when people were saying, like, talking about it, her winning that. She was like, "Yeah, I know it was annoying." So I mean, it worked though for most of the game, so I gotta give it to her.
Yeah, I mean, look, people in the first few weeks of this game were calling Danielle the worst traitor ever. She lasted, I mean, I think we said this last week, but she lasted longer than any other traitor in any international version of the show, I believe, except for Surrey Fields. So she survive more round tables is what I'll say
Yeah.
than everyone except Suri. So that's incredible. I mean, look, it may have come off on the show as being obvious and bad acting, But for the people who were there, they trusted her enough as a faithful, and she did a good enough job convincing them that she made it as long as she did and made it to the finale episode,
Yeah.
which was a cliffhanger. But like, still, for her to be able to last this long in the game, gotta give it up to her.
Yeah, for sure. And then that closes out this season of The Traitors season 3. So what were your thoughts overall looking back at the season as a whole?
I think it was a fantastic season. Look, people can say that the finale was underwhelming and it may have left a little bit of a bad taste in people's mouths of just, after such a strong season. But I think when we look back at it in, even just like a few weeks, I think that we'll forget kind of how maybe slightly disappointing the finale was for some people. And you're just going to think of the season as a whole. And I think that everyone will think back on it in a very positive light, that it was such a wild roller coaster of a season, and there were some amazing amazing moments, and I think that overall I would still say that this is the strongest Traders US season of the 3.
Yeah, I agree. I think also the cast was just amazing for this season. I think Dylan, of course, was a big standout. Like no one was expecting that from him starting out the game until like when he got his first trade around. Everyone was just like very impressed, and also how he was playing the game and building that
Yeah.
trust with everyone as a faithful. So I was happy to see that. Now he's the heartthrob of America, even though he has a girlfriend. But I was just overall very pleased with the season as well. And I think obviously Traders is one of our favorite shows, so I don't think there could really be a bad season of the Traders.
Oh, there could.
There
There
could
definitely
be,
could.
but right now we haven't been there yet. So
Right.
we've still had great seasons of the Traders. So we're living on that high. But I'm just sad that it's over, but I'm excited to watch the UK seasons now.
Yes, please text me your thoughts when you watch it,
I will.
and I'm excited for that. And I will. I still need to go back and watch season 2 and 1 and 2 of UK. I've only seen season 3, so I definitely am going to do that soon when I'm caught up on Australian Survivor. That'll be my next international journey. So, all right, well, as we close out the book on Traders, we still are very early on in Survivor 48. So, let's talk about episode 2 just a little bit. We're going to do this pretty quickly since we're already going along here in this episode, but we will just quickly touch on the highlights from episode 2. So, get back from last week's tribal council, and Say and Mary are talking about last night's vote and Mary voting for Say, which Say did not expect. So Say tells her to her face that there's no hard feelings, but in reality is planning to target her the first chance she gets. So do you think that that is the best move for Say to kind of be retaliatory in that way?
I mean, I feel like they already knew she didn't trust her in that way, so, like, I think it's not gonna really do much good anyways, like, if she was trying to defend herself there and saying there were no hard feelings, like, obviously, Mary's not gonna still trust her after that, so, I obviously, like, you have to do what you have to do in this part of the game, but I don't think it really helped her in that way either.
Yeah, Mary didn't believe it. I mean, she said in her confessional, she was like, "Yeah, like Say's telling me this to my face, but I know that she doesn't mean it." She actually even said that to Say, I think. Like she kind of
Yeah.
said like no, like there's no way nobody would get a vote and just be okay with it. So she knew that that was not necessarily true, but and I think that was smart of Mary to obviously believe and not just kind of take it for face values there. So but then we go over to the Logi tribe, and they are talking about who to sit out in the next challenge. Eva says that Star should sit out, which upsets Star, and I think that's perfectly understandable. That's probably something where Eva just couldn't necessarily understand the social cue of not necessarily you shouldn't say that to somebody's face, and that was probably just an instance of Eva not quite understanding that type of social cue, and I could completely understand why Star was upset with that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, at that point, it's like you want to play in as many challenges as you can, and so saying that you should sit out for someone that doesn't want to sit out is obviously not a good thing.
Yeah. So then that really kind of clues Star into thinking maybe I'm on the bottom here and I need an idol. So she goes looking and she ends up actually finding it. She finds the Beware advantage. And with that, she finds a puzzle lock similar to what we saw on the Vula tribe last week and a guide. So this is a little bit different than the one that we saw in the premiere. She has to crack the code to get the idol, and there are signs with different animals on them on trees spread throughout the jungle. But the guide, they have to kind of match it up to the guide, and it will reveal a letter that they need to then find all six of the letters and unscramble them, and then they'll get the word that ends up unlocking it. So that I thought this was kind of cool.
Yeah.
I like that it seems like similar difficulty level to what we saw last week, but it was still unique and different, and it's better than watching just the same thing three times.
Yeah, and I like that obviously they were different across each of the tribes. Like so we also see it with what is it, Siba that also finds
Hmm.
the same they also have animals, but it's also different in that
Yeah.
way. So it was interesting to see that they made it different but also difficult for all of them.
Right, exactly. Well, Star tells Joe about her advantage and asks for his help in completing it. Then this just becomes a game of telephone because then Joe tells Shaheen about it. Shaheen is unsure how much to help Star. I kind of this moment was very interesting to me where Star tells Bianca and Thomas about the Beware advantage. Then Thomas goes to Shaheen and recommends that Shaheen just loses the guide so that Star can't get the idol. Now, what do you think about this? Shine doesn't want to do that. He thinks it's too early for a move like that. I love that Thomas suggested it. I think that it would be so entertaining, but I agree with Shaheen that I don't think that that was probably the right move for this moment in the game. What do you
Yeah,
think?
no, I was like, wow, that's smart, but also like it would be too aggressive, I think, at that moment. But I like that suggestion as well. I was like, wow, what else is Thomas gonna have up his sleeve? If this was one of his ideas, like this is great. I want to see him go far in the game now.
Yeah, he's not going to be someone that just kind of sits around and gets, is a number for whatever side he's on. Like, he's going to come up with creative ideas like this that are a little evil, but very entertaining. And yeah, I just think that it would be too obvious. Like, I don't think that somebody would actually just lose the guide. And I don't know what happened to it. Like, I just think that that would be so obvious to everyone on the tribe that that was very, very intentional.
Yeah,
So I think that that was probably the biggest problem with it, but love the idea, and I hope that he continues to come up with more ideas like that. But then Joe tells Eva, who is the last one to know about the Beware advantage. He goes and tells Eva about Star's about that Star found it, and Eva says we need to make sure she doesn't win it because Star obviously, because Eva's the only one she didn't tell, that Star's target. Eva knows that, it seems like, and wants to make sure that Star does not win it. So I'm very curious to see what happens here because we don't get an answer to that. We don't see them win the idol yet. So I'm curious to see how much they will be helping Star and whether that will impact Star's ability to actually unlock it and get the idol. So we
yeah,
will see if there's an answer to that next week, potentially. But on Vula, we don't get a ton of time here with Vula, but Kevin, Cedric, and Justin spend time debating whether to vote out Say or Mary at the next tribal. At this point, those are the two that are kind of up for debate here between the three of them. And so they don't really come to an answer at this point, but they're kind of debating back and forth between the two of them. And then we go on to the journey. So the tribes have to decide who to go on this first journey, and they do it in kind of an interesting way here that we've never seen before. That they don't just get to decide amongst themselves who is going to go. Everyone has to hold out on their hand a number between 1 and 5, and the person with the lowest unique number wins. So if three people choose one, but then one person chooses two, the person who chooses two will actually end up going on the journey because more than one person chose one. So kind of an interesting game here. What did you think of it?
yeah. It's actually in the Survivor board game. It's one of the challenges in it. So it's
Oh.
like a little like, they have it as one of the cards. So I've actually I played the game actually a few weeks ago, and it was one of
Oh.
the games. So that was funny to see that they actually used it in the season. So maybe they're gonna use some of the other aspects of the card game into the season as well. But that was interesting because obviously, like, it was I already heard of it. So I was like, "Oh, wow, it's being used here." So I
Wow, that's
like
so
seeing that.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have the game, but I have not played
Mm.
it yet. So how was it fun?
Yeah, it was fun. I liked it.
Nice. Okay, I'm
Yeah.
excited to play it then.
Mhm.
So Thomas, Mary, and Mitch end up for their respective tribes going on the journey. They have to complete a slide puzzle. If they finish it before the time runs out, they receive an advantage. If not, they lose their vote at the next tribal. Thomas and Mitch successfully complete the puzzle and win an advantage. Thomas gets a steal a vote. Mitch wins a block a vote. Mary, unfortunately, does not complete it in time and loses her vote. I thought that this puzzle was fine. Look, I don't love the journeys, but it was fine.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, like, it was interesting also that all their different advantages were different. I mean, we don't know what Mary's would have been, but that
Yeah.
Thomas and Mitch both got an unique advantages too.
Yeah, I mean, Mitch kind of got a little bit screwed here. I feel like a steal a vote is so much more powerful than a block a vote,
Yeah,
but I mean, look, I guess they're both fine.
yeah.
They're both decent advantages, but yeah, I'm curious what Mary's would have been because I don't know. I feel like those are kind of the only two similar ones that I can think of, but I guess we'll never know. But back at camp, Mary tells her tribe that she lost her vote. Thomas hides his advantage, but Mitch is very public about his. I thought it was a really cool moment. I thought when Mitch was public is that everyone was so excited for him and that he was able to be so public about it, and everyone just kind of celebrates him, and nobody is shady about it or nervous about it. So that to me shows how loved Mitch is on his tribe, and I think is a sign that at least until the merge I feel like he's in a pretty good position as of right now.
Yeah, I agree. I like Mitch, and I think he's already getting a good edit here, so that makes me hopeful that he lasts pretty long.
Yeah. Well, on Siva, Kyle finds the Beware advantage and tells David about it. There is a puzzle lock and a riddle. So, this is, again, a little bit different. They have to solve the riddle to determine the word that will unlock it. There are animals kind of around it that signify the animals that are on the trees. But with Siva, it's interesting because before finding the Beware advantage, they all found those symbols and the rope. And so they already had all the letters before they ever found the beware advantage.
Yeah,
So,
which is
uh,
crazy.
yeah. So that was really interesting that Kyle then tells Camilla, or Kyle and David tell Camilla to help them figure it out because they couldn't figure it out on their own. So they already had the letters. So Camilla just kind of used those letters to try different combinations, and she ends up solving it with a word enlist. So they end up getting the idol. Kyle gets it. I guess it's technically Kyle's idol because he was the first to find it. But it seems like he is very grateful to Camilla for actually doing all the work there. So I hope that he doesn't end up using it against her at any point because that would be really messed up.
I know. At that moment, I was like, "Well, this is really good for them if he still remains true to her." Like, I'm like, I really hope it does, but I don't know because it's
Yeah.
Survivor, so you never
I
know.
know. I feel like I could maybe see it in like 4 or 5 weeks if he end up still not having used it, and then maybe more has happened since then
Mhm.
that could end up working against her. But that would be a sad moment if
Yeah.
she ends up kind of sealing her own fate in that way if that ends up getting used against her at any point.
Yeah.
But we'll see. So before the immunity challenge, another very touching moment. Jeff asks Mitch when he is stuttering if he prefers people to finish his sentences or let him finish on his own. And Mitch does say that he prefers people to allow him the time to finish. So I love that Jeff asked this. I think that this was such a lot of times Survivor, I think, tries to make a moment like this that ends up feeling a little cringy and a little forced. But to me, this felt very organic that it came out of a moment of Mitch stuttering, and then Jeff, out of what seems to be genuine curiosity, just kind of asked that question. And I think that it seemed like Mitch was very grateful that Jeff asked and didn't assume either way. So I really loved this moment.
Yeah, me too. I think we're continuing to get those wholesome moments here in this season, so it's nice to see it continue, and it's good for the awareness of people with a speech impediment as well.
For sure. Well, for the challenge, one person from each tribe races to the top of a tall tower, leap into the ocean. They swim to a platform where they'll pull themselves underwater and release two buoys. The rest of the tribe jumps off the platform in pairs and works together to transport the buoys to balance beams. Once everyone's there, they race to the land, five buoys in a tall basket. So they're playing for both reward and immunity. Reward for the winning tribe is a large fishing kit. Second tribe to finish gets a smaller fishing kit. Siva ends up winning. Logi finishes second, and thus Vula loses. And again, we'll go back to tribal. So, did any of those results surprise you?
No, I wasn't surprised by this. I think, like, obviously we've known that we felt like Bula was the weakest tribe of them all,
Yeah,
so I was sad to see them lose again because I do like their tribe, but obviously they just don't have as much strength, and also with the final, like, throwing into the basket, that's just it comes down to that as well, and it's hard to get those in sometimes.
for sure. Yeah. Well, Cedric was kind of the felt responsible for their loss at Vula and ends up apologizing to his tribe. And at that point, I kind of thought like, oh, are they gonna end up just kind of cutting Cedric because I guess he gonna like volunteer to be voted out? That's kind of the vibe I was getting a little bit there, but
Yeah.
he doesn't. And Kevin hatches a plan to blindside Say with her idol. Cedric does not want to do this and tries to find a way for Mary to still leave, save Say. And he, in trying to do this, he tells Say to use her idol tonight. This was his way to make sure that Say does not go home and that whatever they decide will happen, just even if it's just the two of them voting. So Cedric tells Justin about this, and Justin wants to use this as an opportunity to actually get out Kevin instead of Mary, thinking that Kevin is the more strategic, better player. So then at Tribal, Say outs the fact that everyone is working together except Mary. May and Sari argue back and forth a little bit. So before we got the vote here, what did you think was going to happen?
I kind of felt like they were gonna go for Kevin because I thought that with that plan in place, like with what Justin was suggesting, like, well, Mary knows that she's gonna go for Say's gonna go for Mary. Like, they just needed the three votes to go on someone else and then get out Kevin, and then they wouldn't have to worry about it, and like they could all stick together still. So I thought that was really smart for Justin to suggest that. Like that in that
Hmm.
moment, I was like, oh, he is strategic here too, and so that I felt bad though because I really like Kevin. But I was like, I mean, they did notice how good that Kevin was like thinking about different strategies there too. And obviously, like you don't want to be with someone who's gonna outwit you in the end. So if they're already seeing that it was a good move here, then they should go for it now.
Yeah, I think I was like 70% sure that that was going to happen, but there was still a little part of me that thought, like, oh, maybe like I thought Say's going to use her idol for sure, but then I thought, oh, maybe they're just going to go for Mary. Like, maybe they're just going to go for the safe vote and get out Mary here. So then this was kind of like a little bit of a red herring, the whole Kevin plot, but it wasn't. It ends up, Say does use her idol. Kevin is blindsided with three votes and it was a lot more of an entertaining tribal than I thought it was going to be. Like I thought this was going to be when they lost, I was like, ah, it's an easy vote. Mary's going home, but it ended up being a lot more entertaining than that. So I was very happy about that. Although also, like you said, very sad because I really liked Kevin and I thought that Kevin was kind of a lock to be in this game for a really long time. Like I just thought he had a really strong social game. It seemed like he really knew the game and was willing to strategize and it felt like he was really in it and strong. So I was surprised that he's out as early as he is, but yeah, it was a good episode.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm hoping that this episode we see another tribe lose and
I
go
hope
to
so too.
tribal council because we can't get even smaller with the Siva tribe at this or with the Lagi, Bula, sorry. The last I was like, I
I
know
am
it's
so bad with
green, what
tribe
are their
names.
names? Yeah.
Yeah, just a green tribe. Yeah.
Green tribe, Bula. Okay, now I won't get it wrong. Bula tribe hopefully will win, and either Siva or Lagi will go to tribal.
I hope
But
so, but they lost one of their strongest players.
I know
It
because
seems
Kevin
like
was
so.
good.
Yeah, I'm not too hopeful for them exactly, but I really hope so too. I hope that we get to see one of the other tribes go to tribal so that we get a little bit more into what their dynamic is and strategically. And I don't like to see any one tribe get down too small ever
Mhm.
since Survivor Palau when it got down to just Stephanie on her tribe. And that was a tribe of 10 that started. So ever since then, it was fun to watch once, but after that, it's a little tiring to keep watching the same tribe go to tribal over and over again. So
Yeah,
we will
for sure.
see. Excited to see next week's episode, and we will continue to cover it here on Let's Chat Reality. So be sure to stick with us, follow us at Let's Chat Reality on all social media, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And we will chat with you guys next week. Bye, everyone.
Bye.